Montana This Morning continues on Montana's News Leader.
After this winter storm, the East Coast is now bracing for a deep freeze. I'm Hannah Dova in New York with more on the winter blast and what's being called a record-breaking bitter cold.
And closer to home, crowd turns out for a Bozeman School Board hearing about the proposed new high school football stadium. What people at the meeting were concerned about also coming up.
Good morning and welcome to your Friday. Missy O'Malley and Chet Lehman with you here. Matt Elwell will have our forecast in just a moment. Our top story for you now. Residents up and down the East Coast are busy digging out of this week's massive snowstorm.
Storm has moved out, but as our Hannah Doba explains from New York, today may actually be the day that ultimately could be the most hazardous.
A woman in Hull, Massachusetts being rescued by a front loader. The first floor of her home flooded, as if the snow and wind brought to the East Coast by the so-called bomb cyclone weren't enough. Boston and coastal areas nearby also experienced historic flooding.
It was pounding. It was hitting the seawall and going above the telephone poles.
Nearly 500 National Guard members were called in to assist with flood emergencies in several states. Most places, though, are still digging out from the snow. Plymouth, Connecticut got caught off guard by almost 1.5 feet.
We thought we were going to get about 6 inches.
The accumulation in Maryland was so bad in parts that even these two snowplows got stuck. And in New York City, the iconic lights and signs of Times Square were barely visible during the height of the storm. And making a bad traffic situation even worse, this tractor trailer was left spinning its wheels while blocking an intersection.
And while this round of snow has passed, the bigger danger may lie ahead, as extreme cold is expected to freeze anything that hasn't been shoveled away.
Officials all down the coast are asking people to stay off the roads. Police officers in typically warm weather states, like here in South Carolina, are particularly worried about drivers who've never had to deal with icy conditions.
Unless you're driving a Zamboni, you're not going to be able to control the vehicle, especially at higher speeds.
Many of the states hit with snow yesterday may be in for another round early next week, as a system developing in the Pacific Northwest makes its way east. Hannah Doba, CBS News, New York.
Now, most airports closed yesterday. They're expected to reopen later today. Thousands of flights were canceled because of the storm. American Airlines, for one, has warned customers that scattered cancellations and delays will continue through today. So check with your carrier.
Wow.
You may be sitting for a while.
You got to be a Zamboni driver.
Got to be a Zamboni driver. That's
one of the best.
Line of the week, right?
At least the best of the week. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Hey, for us, I don't think that's a problem, but we are going to see a little melting, and there may be some black ice on a few of the area roadways across the area. We also have some fog. So, again, turn on your headlights. That's my warning to you. If you have some fog out there, it certainly helps not only you see other people, but other people see you along the way. Temperatures not bad, into the 20s for most of us. 1 degree in West Yellowstone, among the coldest, and not only in the region but in the nation at this point. Looks like we're going to be dealing with these temperatures near the 30-degree mark for the afternoon. I can't rule out a few flurries off and on through the day, but our best chance of snow coming tomorrow. There may be a few other dangers as well. We'll talk about that, of course, coming up out on the Billion Auto Weather patio in about 10 minutes.
Thanks, Matt. It's now 6:35 on this Friday. A meeting last night allowed the public to comment on a proposal for a new high school stadium in Bozeman. Superintendent of Schools Dr. Rob Watson gave a brief history of the project before consultants from architecture firm NE45 gave an overview of the plans for the site. Parents asked about several issues, including the impact on pickup and drop-off areas for students, on whether or not the new design would improve an already short supply of available parking. Now, last month, a meeting was held where the school board passed the schematic design for the new stadium. School board wanted to give the public a meeting that would allow for public comment, as well as give the school board and stadium design team an opportunity to answer questions.
We're proceeding with the design development phase. Our goal is to break ground on this project on April 1st, so we're in a fairly tight timeline, and in order to accomplish that goal of breaking ground, then we need to move it along.
Now, this was all part of a bond that passed last May to build a new high school and bring the current high school up to date. Under the plan, the two schools would share the new stadium. School board could decide as soon as Monday whether or not to go ahead with this plan.
In other news this morning, the Department of Environmental Quality has released the scoping report for the proposed copper mine outside of White Sulphur Springs following a public comment period. The DEQ says 9,236 comment letters were received, including comments given during the 4 public meetings. The report says the form letters are focusing on the Smith River, which the proposed mine location sits near a Smith tributary. A majority of the concerns of the comments surrounded long-term effects along the Missouri River corridor, potential mitigation of the consideration of those alternatives. The DEQ is currently working on completing the environmental impact statement for that project.
Well, people in Butte are expected to get a chance this month to try out the new parking garage in Uptown. While the $7.5 million parking garage is still under construction, City plans to have it open for free parking before the end of this month, and it will remain free for about 2 months. City will also have a kiosk set up in the Butte Courthouse this month where people can learn how to pay for parking in the garage.
We're going to bring one up, have a demonstration given by the vendor about how it works, what the features are, all of those things. And so we'll make sure that that's a public thing that people can come and listen if they're interested and learn about it. And then it'll be here for people to play with, basically, so that they can get used to it.
Just a reminder, the city will begin charging for parking in the 240 space facility sometime in March.
And the News Extensive Collection is coming to the Montana State University Archives, the documents of Mike Clark, a collection that the university had great interest as it preserves the fight against mining near Yellowstone National Park. MTN's Morgan Davies speaks with Mike Clark himself to learn more about these archives.
Yellowstone was entrusted into our care as a people, a whole people, more than 120 years ago now. And today we are saying to the rest of the world, to the rest of our country, and to future generations of America, we have been worthy of that trust, and we are giving it on to our children and our children's children.
That was former President Bill Clinton speaking at Yellowstone National Park after he arranged a federal buyout for a company that wanted to mine near the park. The deal is something that Mike Clark is credited with.
Their campaign, and successful campaign, to combat the mining claims of the Noranda Company at Crown Butte, just outside of Yellowstone National Park. Through the efforts of Mike and that organization and a lot of other concerned people, that area was withdrawn from mineral resource consideration by the federal government during the Clinton administration.
Clark says that he documented the Yellowstone area for nearly 50 years, and as the former director of the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, he says that it was remarkable to work with Clinton.
Once we got the attention of the president, he was very concerned about the park, and he told his staff and he told his cabinet to figure out a way to do this. And the cabinet actually, he asked Vice President Gore to chair a monthly meeting of the U.S. cabinet on solutions to stopping the mine. And they did that for about 6 or 8 months. So it was a high-level engagement by the president and by his top people.
Pictures, writings, and even the documents between the mining company and the president can all be found in the MSU archives. It's going to take some time for them to go through all of this to put them in an organized and comprehensive manner before it's open to the public in June. Reporting in the studio, Morgan Davies, MTN News.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Now, the Greater Yellowstone Coalition is still around today. It has been working along with Montana and U.S. Senators and Representative Greg Gianforte to stop 2 other mines near that park.
Interesting collection.
Very much so. Mike Clark, what an interesting guy. I love that. We do have to take a quick break, but we're so glad you're with us here on your Friday morning. We don't want you to miss the story next. The Montana Department of Revenue is making major changes as we head into tax season.
We'll explain, but first here's Nora O'Donnell with a look ahead for our headlines at 7 on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead here on CBS This Morning, President Trump takes aim at the author of an explosive tell-all book that details turmoil in the White House. And the Department of Justice responds to the New York Times report that actions involving the president and attorney general could constitute obstruction of justice. We'll see you right at 7.